一无所得故，菩提萨埵，依般若波罗蜜多。心无挂碍，无挂碍故，无有空。远离颠倒梦，修纪念。三世诸佛，依般若波罗蜜多。得阿耨多罗三藐三菩提。故知般若波罗蜜多是大神咒，是无上咒，是无等等咒，能除一真实不虚。故说般若波罗蜜多咒，即说咒也。波罗揭谛菩提萨婆云霄三藏诸法那愿得智慧者明了普愿财上喜相处爱世日常行菩萨道。
Have I heard once the Blessed One saying in Raja Peak, along with the great community of monks and great community of bodhisattvas, and at that time the Blessed One entered the meditative absorption of the varieties of phenomenal cold appearance, the profound at that time as well, and the Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, clearly beheld the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom itself, and saw that even five aggregates are empty of intrinsic existence. Thereupon, through the Buddha's inspiration, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, and said, "How should any noble son or noble daughter who wishes to engage in the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom train?" When this had been said, the holy Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, spoke to the Venerable Shariputra and said, "Shariputra, any noble son or noble daughter who so wishes to engage in the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should clearly see this way. They should see perfectly that even the five aggregates are empty of intrinsic existence. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, emptiness is no other than form, and form too is no other than emptiness. Likewise, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are emptiness. They are without defining characteristics. They are not born, they do not cease. They are not defiled, they are not undefiled. They are not deficient, and they are not complete. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feelings, no perception, no mental formation, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There is no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no texture, no mental objects. There is no eye element, and so on up to no mind element, and including no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, there is no extinction of ignorance, and so on up to no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Likewise, There is no suffering, origination, cessation, or path. There is no wisdom, no attainment, and even no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they rely on the perfection of wisdom, abide, and having no obscuration in their minds. They have no fear, and by going perfectly beyond error, utterly beyond error, they will reach the end of nirvana. All the Buddhas who abide in the three times attain this full awakening of unexcelled perfect enlightenment by relying on this profound perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the one should know that the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unexcelled mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that quells all suffering is true because it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed that Yata Gata Gata Para Gata Parasanga de Bodhi Swaha Shariputra, the Bodhisattva, the great beings, should train in the perfection of wisdom in this way. Thereupon the Blessed One arose from that meditative absorption and commended the Holy Avalokiteshvara. So the great being saying this is excellent and so forth. So today we'll have a general introductory teaching, and then because the Chinese Dharma friends have requested me to teach the second chapter of Pramana Vartika Karika in Je Rinpoche, Master Tsongkhapa's Destiny Fulfilled. It says that this Pramana Vartika rejects the views of non-Buddhist philosophical traditions, and therefore for those seeking liberation, the text says that the Buddha is the reliable or the authoritative person for those who seek liberation. So in the beginning of the Pramana Vartika Karika, it says in the first it says that the majority of the people having attachment to ordinary pursuits and lacking in the requisite strength of intellect, understanding, not only have no interest and fail to appreciate the holy discourses, but being covered with the dirt of malice, even hate them. I do not therefore entertain the thought that this work of mine will be benefit to others, but my mind, having developed an obsession fostered by prolonged study of science and scriptures, is bent intent upon this task I desire to compose. So today we have very few people who really seek the Dharma, but they are more or less obsessed with materialistic way of life. So this text, what Master Dhammakirti says here is true. So of course all religions teach us to be kind, to be altruistic, and particularly this Nalanda tradition of Buddhism ask us to use our intellect to understand what causes disturbance in our mind, this unruly state of mind, and what are those which bring about peace of mind or overcoming these undisciplined states of mind. These are explained very clearly in Buddhism. And so So I do not therefore entertain the thought that this work of mine will be of benefit to others, but my mind, having developed an obsession fostered by prolonged study, is bent upon this task that I desire to compose. So in Tibet in the past, there were scholars who said that this text, these texts by Master Dharmakirti and others on logic and epistemology have no use for those seeking liberation, because they do not teach the practices and the paths to liberation. Whereas Master Tsongkhapa, having studied all these texts, so the verse that I was trying to quote from the Destiny or Fulfilled, or says, so the Dharmakirti's Pramana Vartika Karika is said to be, so it says, Rinpoche says that those in Tibet, whether they are learned or not, say unanimously that these, the Pramana Samuchaya by Dignaga and Pramana Vartika and Karika and so forth, the 7 texts by Dharmakirti, do not teach the path to liberation. But they also accept that Manjushri himself told Dignaga in a vision that his text would, his work would be like an eye to the world in the future. And so I find these two contradictory, and therefore having studied the Pramana Vartika Karika, I have found that the Buddha is a reliable, the Pramana Vartika Karika teaches that the Buddha is a reliable teacher, and his teachings are the factors or the means for liberation. And therefore, he says that I have found this. So I found, having studied these texts, that my pursuit has been beneficial. And so, in the past, in Tibet, people have considered this Pramana Vartika Karika to be no use to those who seek liberation, but only some kind of argument with other non-Buddhist traditions and so forth. So Je Rinpoche Master Tsongkhapa studied Pramana Vartika Karika under masters like Rendawa and so forth, and therefore found it to be very good and excellent text to understand that the Buddha is a reliable or a Pramana, and that he is an unsurpassable or unmatched teacher. So whether it's a teaching in the Perfection of Wisdom, the sutras, or other texts like sutras, like Sandinimochana Sutra by the Buddha, all of them are excellent teachings. So usually I say that the first turning of the wheel of Dharma was the sermon on the Four Noble Truths, which lays the foundation of Buddha Dharma, the teaching of the Buddha. So the Buddha said, this is the true suffering, this is the true origin, this is true cessation, this is the true a path, and then he goes on to say the suffering must be understood, origin must be overcome, and this true cessation must be actualized, and then the path, cultivate it. And then finally, with regard to these Four Noble Truths, the Buddha said, though the suffering should be understood, there's nothing to be understood. Though the origin should be overcome, there's nothing to be overcome, and so forth. So there's, though the true cessation must be actualized, there's nothing to be actualized. And though the path must be cultivated, there's nothing to be cultivated. And so in this way, the Buddha turned the first turning of the wheel of Dharma in connection with the Four Noble Truths. So with regard to the texts on pramana, logic and epistemology, there were, of course, people who belittled them, and that is not right. So if you study them, you will find it is very important to study the Pramana Vartika Karika, because it uses the reason and logic to prove the reliability or the authoritativeness of the Buddha and so forth. And so Rinpoche Tsongkhapa himself pursued the study of these texts on Pramana Vartika Karika, as he said in the Destiny Fulfilled. So it's these texts on logic by Pramana Dhammakirti and so forth actually goes through reason to prove that, uses reason and logic to prove the Buddha to be a reliable person and not just based on faith. So the Buddha himself has advised us to check his teaching well and not just believe in what he has taught. Check through reason and logic. Whereas most of the other religious traditions are based more or less on faith. Whereas, on the other hand, Buddhism, and particularly the Nalanda tradition of Buddhism, emphasizes using reason and logic to demonstrate the truth of the teaching of the Buddha. So today, science, there is so much advancement in science, and many people, scientists and so forth, who are not biased, but remain neutral. They take interest in the teaching of the Buddha, and particularly with regard to the workings and the system of mind and emotions, they are explained in great detail in the Buddha's teaching. And understanding these, it helps to keep our peace of mind. Whether you believe in a religion or not, amongst the scientists, whether they believe in religion or not, they say that if you have peaceful state of mind, then your body also remains very calm. And whereas if you are full of anxiety, anger, hatred, and so forth, you lose peace of mind. So the peace of mind, the main factor for that is the practice and training of altruism, or love and compassion. So the practice of love and compassion, meditating on or cultivating love and compassion, helps gain peace of mind. So when you face provocations of anger and so forth, if you remain calm and cultivate or develop love and compassion, it brings peace of mind. And because of that, your body, physically, you feel healthy and leave aside other things. If you have peaceful state of mind, you'll sleep better. Whereas if you are not, if your mind is restless, you will turn back and forth in your bed, turn left and right, and so forth. So health-wise also, peace of mind is very crucial. So peace of mind may be to a very small degree brought by some kind of sleeping pills. But if you are able to have a compassionate state of mind towards other sentient beings, all sentient beings, then you will truly have peace of mind. We all talk about peace in the world, but the true or real peace must be brought about through a kind and warm-hearted, kind state of mind and warm-heartedness. And we talk about world peace. While talking about world peace, if we are full of anger, hatred, and so forth, you are contradicting yourself. So non-violence, if you follow the philosophy of non-violence, then the weapons and wars and battles become irrelevant to us. So today, we have 7 or 8 billion people on this earth. All of them are same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. It is not about any religion or spiritual tradition, but right from the time of our birth, we have been nurtured and cared for by our mother. So I have this plan to have meetings with higher institution, people in the higher institution in India. So of course, when we were children, as children, we the sense of kindness and warm-heartedness and so forth were quite fresh in our mind. Whereas once we joined the school system, then these teachings on love and compassion, their importance, essentiality, and so forth are not taught. And so there's a lack of interest and paying attention to these. And so when I go to Delhi, I would like to meet with educators in Delhi University and other universities. So what we are going to talk about is how we disturb our peace of mind. And what actually disturbs our peace of mind? So if these knowledge could be introduced in the school system, in the education system, it will be really beneficial for everyone, from the junior kindergarten up to highest institutions. So the Indian tradition of karuna, compassion, and ahimsa, the non-violence, have been practiced in India for thousands of years. So, of course, non-violence or not harming others has been promoted by Mahatma Gandhi. And so in his struggle for India's independence, he used non-violent means. And therefore, in Africa and other places, there were many people who followed Gandhi's principles and struggled through non-violence for their rights and so forth. So the non-violence has been promoted very widely by Mahatma Gandhi. But we should know that non-violence, the source of non-violence, ultimately is compassion and love. And so I would like to have discussions on this with the educationists or in the higher institutions in Delhi. And so in India, there's been talk about the love and compassion since ancient times. Not only that, in all religious traditions also, these are always taught. So whereas other religious traditions are based on mainly on faith, our Nalanda tradition of Buddhism is not like that. It uses works to promote this through logic. So this is what I think I would like to do in Delhi. And so I have this wish to serve in this regard as much as I can. So I practice them. As soon as I wake up in the morning, I reflect on and cultivate bodhicitta, this altruistic spirit of enlightenment. And this really brings inner strength and courage within me, and brings about the compassion and love towards others who are suffering. And so love and compassion, these bring about, bodhicitta and so forth, bring about courage to work for others and not bring about hatred and so forth. And so so you can have that kind of determination and the courage and inner strength to work for others. So I tell my friends also that if you have peace of mind, if you have love and compassion, you will have peaceful state of mind, and you will be able to face challenges without feeling agitation, but peacefully. So in China, they used to call me a reactionary, Dalai, the reactionary, but it has now they are not calling me these names these days. So the people there find that I am someone who works for peace. And then there are people who take interest in my teachings and people who turn to Buddhism. The number are increasing. And so the teaching of love and compassion in Buddhism is very profound and effective. So I was talking about the Pramana Vartika Karika, commentary on valid cognition. So the text on the logic and epistemology for religious people. Also, this helps to bring about very firm faith and in the teaching and stable faith in the teaching. So in the second chapter, where it says, so the second chapter of the Pramana Vartika Karika says valid cognition is a non-deceptive awareness. And this text actually comments on Pramana Samuchaya's verse of salutation. So through the teaching of someone, we can actually check whether the person is someone reliable or not. And we are not saying the Buddha is someone authoritative and so forth, not because he displayed miracles and so forth, but through his teaching that he teaches love and compassion. And so forth. And so, with regard to peace in the world, we need to know that, we must know that it is brought about by a peaceful state of mind. Love and compassion brings about that. So whether you believe in a religion or not, whether you believe in the teaching of the Buddha or not, love and compassion is something that we have become ingrained in us since our childhood by the mother's kindness and care to us. And so, in order to bring about peace in the world, we need peace of mind. And we are followers of Buddhism, and particularly the Nalanda tradition, in which the means of developing peace of mind is taught in great detail. And so we should pay attention to this. I mean, there's no need to think about the future life, but even in this life alone, in order to live happily, peacefully with our neighbors, I mean, we should study this, to have peace of mind through love and compassion. So this verse of the verse that I read in the beginning of the text is the pledge to compose the text. So His Holiness was just reading the first verse. After that, a provance is not a property of the logical subject. It's necessarily concomitant with an element and so forth. But I think Yongten Rinpoche wants His Holiness to jump to chapter 2, which is establishing the Buddha to be reliable. So we are going to go through. So His Holiness is saying that, asking whether he had taught the first chapter of Pramana Vartika or not. So the text, the second chapter begins with these lines. Valid cognition is a non-deceptive awareness. So with regard to valid cognition, there are different interpretations according to different schools of thought. In the case of Prasangika, school of thought. They say that things do not have any existence from their own side, and whatever we see as ordinary beings, there's always some deception in the way we see things. And what remains as functional is non-deceptive. What arises from sounds is indicative of the intention. The sound, the verse number 2 on page 4, the sound is valid with respect to the meaning of the object, which is clearly perceived by the mind of the utterer. It is not a reason to establish the fact of the meaning. The concealer, subsequent cognition, is not valid cognition as it apprehends what is perceived already. The awareness alone is valid cognition. And so our behavior, physical and verbal, ensue from our mind, that intention. And therefore, if we are able to practice by understanding the truth, it would be good. Valid cognition is the chief, and not these sense powers with respect to engaging in the objects to be abandoned and to be adopted due to a variance of objects with their respect. The various cognitions are posited by the awareness. The existence of this makes the existence of that. Verse number 5. The nature of that is established through itself. Valid cognition is established through labels. Texts are to eliminate the ignorance. The one who illuminates the meaning of the unknown as well is a valid cognition. Following the cognition of the specific entity, the consciousness of the generic aspect is attained. It is intended as the valid cognition, which is but awareness of self-characteristics of the object, which was earlier not known, as it investigates the self-characteristics of the object. Since the transcendent one is endowed with it, he is indeed the valid one. Having transformed is said to reject the non-production. And so here what is being treated is that the assertions of other schools where they say, where they talk about the God as creator and so forth, are not are rejected. And the Buddha has become someone who is valid or reliable through causes and conditions. So to reject non-production. Therefore, it is proper that the valid one should be causally contingent. The valid cognition cannot be permanent, as it should be valid one. Should be the valid one to cognize an existing thing. Since the cognized is impermanent, it is non-static. Those produced sequentially cannot feasibly be produced from a permanent thing. Permanent things should not be contingent, and nothing can exist it. Despite being impermanent, no valid cognition exists to prove it to be omniscient. The reasons such as it acts intermittently, a unique shape, functioning, and so forth are invalid. Either it is established, they accept it, or the example is not established, or it leaves a doubt, determined by the presence of blessings. Anything like shape is created. What is inferred through that is valid for the creation of the efforts of beings. The very things are produced from varied causes. If inferred through a similar label with generic contents such as shape, which are not distinguishable, is not valid. It is like inferring fire through gray substances. So, reading through verse 18 and 19. Please follow the text if you have. So verse number 24, if through weapons and medicines, injuries and healings take place, why not a piece of wood, which is irrelevant, not seen as a cause to the injuries and healing. External agents cannot be the creator, and there is no difference in its nature when creating or not creating. Since permanent things do not disintegrate, it is not feasible to establish the potential to give rise to the result. If one conceives of a cause, 26, that does not qualify those coming into being through the existence of the causal factor, one has to accept that all results will have infinite causes. The soil and so forth, when their nature changes to produce the shoot, is known as cause. Upon making them fertile, the features of the results are seen. Since the object and the sense source are not different when in collection, and still are the causes for consciousness, likewise is this creator, if you assert. It is not tenable as differences of clarity. So verse number 31 says that the valid one, the Buddha, should be the one to cognize the hidden phenomena, yet there is no reasoning to prove it, and there is no one to exert consistently towards attaining that. Opponents argue thus: the ones with doubt in the mistakes made by confused teachers, in order to be careful in the veracity of teaching, seek those who are knowledgeable. Therefore, they investigate to see if he has the wisdom to realize the purpose of the aspirant. That he realizes the number of the insects is not of any use for me. And the one who realizes what is to be abandoned and what is to be adopted, along with the means, is indeed accepted as a valid one. Not the one who knows the number of all insects and so forth. Whether or not one sees things as at a distance, the one who sees the suchness as intended is relevant. It is, if seeing distance is the valid one, seek vulture. And compassion as the cause arises through familiarization. Verse number 36, verse number 36b. If you assert, since the mind is dependent on the body, attaining omniscience through familiarization and compassion is not feasible. This is not so. The body as dependent of the mind is rejected. When taking rebirth, so they hear the future rebirths is talked about. When taking rebirth, as respiration, sense sources, and mind do not arise merely from the body, independent of one's own mind. Otherwise, it is absurd. For the one with potential, when taking birth, what other conditions are required? The absence of what conditions forbids her from taking rebirth. Taking birth, since no element of earth and so forth should exist which do not give rise to the sentient beings of heat, moisture, and so forth, if beings arise in dependence of mind, therefore all beings arise from the nature of their karmic seeds. Should sense powers, which number 40, since sense powers and so forth arise independent of one's own kind that existed,
뭐이 대한 대매버 대당 편수 균입에 대실 편수 규정이 림잼 매래 림잼이 캐버점에 되방함에 류리즘기 론교나
So verse number 44 says, if the mind does not arise in the absence of sense power, the sense power also does not arise in the absence of the mind. Since the two aid each other, they are mutually causal. What exists in stages cannot arise from the ones without stages. If it cannot be dependent, as it is not affected by conditions. If you assert that the mind arises in grades from the body, which accompanies the earlier graded mind, then the body as well is seen as sequential. The former moments of the body should be cause of the later moments of the mind. Therefore, the mutuality of causation is seen at all times. Verse number 47. What contradict exists for the last moment of the mind to connect to the next mind, and so forth.
거식천아 심균라 판도 제방이요 라떼 품소라네 메소신 저점신의 도보민 류니 never nina sem toba meba tawanyo te yana wongyo che telen jungo temai lungjin bodan jambani bezo meba kanle tata pyujung jibo jibo tawanyo tata layan tawa song simgyu yana songma nebe penchi shanda jan kanchi gyuni yinbanda kedi dongpo laso shin yebe mechun lu gyu min shiwe nyeba nyamgyu shin layan tsoga daudun gyur kedi meni dona yan shingi gyuwa mido shin tena dokwa mechana mayin sochur yushiro lami zhongwa gashi ni lalan gyurwa gebrachi gashi doba yinchir bir shingda sila meshin tangpu chungyang doba min lardo rongwan gyur che kang tene layan zhonggyur de sarki sawa shin nishino chungse soja minjeba chushi nyeba kashiram sese chiru nyeba shi yena somi meba ni shiwe tuso doshiram teyi sosin chele jang gyuwe gyudang chawa na teji
Verse number 61.
nyelin gyuwa meba ni
Why not the dead reverse to life by becoming freed of the causes for change? When the poison which kills is removed by the mantras or through cutting the bidden piece, in the absence of the changes or without the changes in the substance, no change will potentially ensue. It is like not coming into being of a vase. In the absence of change in the clay, without a change in the object, if some other object changes, the former cannot be substantial cause of the other. It is like an ox and non-ox. The mind and the body are the same. As the ox and non-ox, the resultant mind coexists with the body, since it arises from the earlier moment of the mind as the substantial cause, and the earlier moment of the body as the corporative cause. They are like fire and molten copper. Verse number 65, 66.
dinne mechedan nebe gyuni chishisha kadepana chosoki tenjishana dilansong ngano gejirini jingna ngo gyun tedabur gigyu yinchir te tenchir tedamena ringwayin boa yene gejichir chuso jini tengyuji ro meba yondechi lenamlane tenchi dini chowa 최번 두어당 최번 두어전 교당 르러 소번 남내니 때문에는 서와이 개지 현행 거지는 대인네
Verse number 72.
대인네바 규지시사스
If an object disintegrates due to another factor, what can the cause for abiding do? If disintegration happens without another factor, the cause for abiding is impotent. Those with permanent dependi will have abiding. All that is produced are with permanent dependi. Therefore, all phenomena will never disintegrate. If one has the nature of disintegration of its own, what other factors exist to make it abide? If one does not have the nature of disintegration of its own, what other factors exist to make it abide? In the absence of increase and diminution of the body due to the actions of similarity of the mind, intelligence and so forth are seen to improve and diminish. And 76, such is not existent in the dependents, such as firelight and so forth. That body can also affect these intelligence and so forth, as it is not the case that the sensory mind does not receive benefits from the body. So it would be good to finish reading the second chapter for me. There's still quite a bit of the text left, so I'd like to say this. In order to understand the workings and system of mind, in the highest Yoga Tantra, when there is presentation and explanation of the degrees of subtlety within the mind. We should know this. There are the external sensorial consciousness dependent on the physical faculties, and then there is mind, which is mental. And so within the mental, there are degrees of subtlety, and we have the gross state of mind, and then the subtle states of mind, such as those of the 80 different conceptions, the what are known as the states of mind within the whitish in appearance, reddish increase, blackish near attainment. After that, then the clear light state of the mind at the time of dying. And so there has been some investigation into the subtle states of mind by scientists. I have no idea what further progress they have made, but we have some Russians from the Moscow University who wish to check investigate the subtle states of mind through instruments. They have left instruments in Bangalore. And so once the grosser or the coarser state of mind subside and stop working, the innate clear light or the luminous state of mind still remains within the body, and therefore we have people who sit in meditative states called Tugdam in our community. So what is taught in the highest Yoga Tantra about the subtle state of mind is actually factual. So once a person is in that meditative state, after all the states, the gross states of mind have subsided, it may be difficult unless they are very familiar with the analytical meditation before they have gone through the dissolution process. Otherwise, it would be difficult to do analytical meditation at that stage of clear light mind, although they may be able to do the placement or focused concentration practice meditation at that stage. Verse number 74. Again, he's reading. If one has the nature of disintegration of its own, what other factors exist to make it abide? If one does not have the nature of disintegration of its own, what other factors exist to make it abide? In the absence of increase and diminishing of the body due to the actions of familiarity of the mind, intelligence and so forth are seen, to improve and diminish. Such is not existent in the dependence, such as fire, light, and so forth. And then, verse number 77, at times during increase and decrease in the strength of the body, the flaring of attachment and so forth happen due to the pleasant and unpleasant feelings. The feelings in turn are determined by the internal objects of tactility, which is given rise to by the balance of elements and so forth. This also similar tembayin, similar tension, tu sel tade mebechir tedar lulu yandenjo dala chakba tangdenbe semjen shengi timember. It is like, there is now verse number 79, it is like for some hearing and seeing, tiger and blood cause loss of sense, since the mind is purely determined by the actions of the earlier mind. The subsequent mind cannot arise without the previous moments of mind. Therefore, the mind is dependent on the preceding minds and not the body. Just as by the dependence on the body, on the mind, processes such as learning are seen in the subsequent moments of the mind over time, the same qualities are learning should happen to the body, as it is not different from the mind. And since the beings are endowed with attachment for the self, without others driving them, they appropriate inferior birth due to the desire for achieving happiness and eschewing miseries. The beings are shackled due to the misperception of misery and attachment. Those who are freed of these factors will not be born in samsara.
모두 개발 제나니 원유 대지 되제민 디니 들지 라서바 매바다자 사와인 무조세단 제밤
So verse number 85, despite being embodied due to their subtlety, some at times can move unobstructed by other objects. It is like water seeping through the clay pot and mercury through gold. Therefore, what is not seen by Charvakas is not non-existent. If hand and so forth are moved, all should be moved. No contradictory actions should be seen with a single object. On the contrary, the duality of moving and not moving parts is established. Although all should be veiled when one part is veiled, but it is visible that not all is veiled. When one is tainted by color, one can see that some are tainted and others are not. Therefore, the collection is not one as without parts. If the particles are numerous without distinct whole, they should be like the previous moments of subtlety, where the sensory consciousness cannot recognize as they should have no change, and that they remain as subtle particles. It is not established of the sameness of the object before and after. The form is not with distinct feature is not subtle particle, as it is the object of sensory consciousness. This reasoning as also rejects power of external objects to will. How can the mercury reacting with gold and colors be perceived by the sense consciousness? How do conditions such as sense power, which are individually inept, give rise to sense consciousness and cognize form? So verse number 93, 94. Verse number 102.
저는 되네 저기다니 속고집에 개와이 대지야라 다도체 부모이네 수소시 되네 개발 점버시 총지샤나 저버자 멀리 주인 예나네 야라제다 다나 아멘.
Verse number 105. Since both respiration and the body are similar in being multiple, inhaling and exhaling is not what determines a single conceptual mind. Even if it is one respiration, many conceptual minds should manifest, as the causes are forever immediate. If it is not the cause of multiple minds, sequentially as well, it cannot be the cause, as there is no difference for it being unchanging. Even with a single respiration, multiple minds arise to apprehend the objects. The previous position that with one respiration only one conceptual mind arises is not established. 107. If the multiple objects are cognized by one mind, it would cognize the multiple objects simultaneously. There would then exist no contradiction in it, seeing all phenomena simultaneously in sequence as well. It cannot cognize multiple objects, as there lies no difference between the sequential and the single minds in not having the appearance aspect. If you assert that respiration in manifolds, which arises one at a time in temporal sequence, but not from one's own type, is the cause of such a mind, without the cause for having the sequence, how can various moments of the respiration have sequence? If the former types of respiration are the causes, the first moment cannot possibly have respiration, as it does not have such a cause. So on the basis of subtlety of the differentiation between the subtle and the gross states of mind, then we can talk about past and future lives.
Te yalang go na gyun go la me me ba ngen ji men ba ra do shi wong so jiang ne lang dian yin wong bong ga mo reng ri le ne ba dan da tong gyu tong chi de shan zang shi me jia wa da jiang zhu bai ke de lü le de jian na wang ma yin do de wa ju sem le xian na lü xian yang de ni le ni jia wa ju te na gyu dang zhe wei 저는 규정 체외에서 타마이는 좀 너무 그 삼조로 매버 민지로 제대로 제란데 검래 개버는 주는
121.
라신 랜데 미션나 계지지 제데 계데 라야니 베즈라네 된조로
120.
개버전에 매변나 시전장 원인데 베들라 변도 네원
So, if you say, although progress will be existent through familiarization of mental qualities, like the act of reaping and water hate, they will never transcend the bounds of limit, is the reason for not proliferating of the mind qualities, mental qualities, the following: the dependence on repeated efforts after the initial act, or the basis of these qualities is not stable. The nature of mental qualities is not as such, whereas for the leap and water hate, the potential which aids the leap and water hate does not have the potential to aid the subsequent moments, nor is the basis stably durable, therefore progress exists. But infinite progress is not the nature of these things. Whereas with the action done, it does not require repeated efforts. The earlier efforts will make a difference in proliferation. If compassion is brought to familiarity to mind, spontaneously does it flow. It is like the consuming fuels and mercury reacting to gold. Thus attributes such as love, which are generated, are born as qualities with the nature of the mind. Therefore, the subsequent efforts do make a difference in proliferating and the mental qualities, since minds such as loving kindness, being of the nature of to proliferate by virtue of the seeds of the previous type continuum, how will it remain static if one familiarizes oneself with it? Whereas earlier moments of the act of leaping do not proliferate into the next higher measure of leaping, as the power of the causal force and efforts are definite with limitations. Therefore, the act of leaping is with definite limitations. Initially, the person cannot jump as in the future. So self-cherishing attitude has its opponent, which is cherishing others over oneself. And the more you are able to develop cherishing others, the sense of cherishing others over oneself, the self-cherishing attitude naturally will decrease.
Kade tukjan sewe chil gyuyi paksa pangbayin tubjin shandun jukjangi sirula so chandiyin
Verse number 137.
Juble tangbun jume chil nibundini gyurshi gyubang yanden sum deshi
His Holiness was commenting on verse 137. It says, therefore, with the mind to see all phenomena so vividly, all imprints of the cause of suffering are eliminated. That is what marks the difference between the great Muni who engages in the well-being of others and rhinoceros like Patyeka Buddhas and so forth, practicing the means to accomplish the purpose is accepted with the reference teacher, since following the accomplishment of the two compassionate intention, the teacher of the selflessness, the first, the Sugata, the favorable personal benefit ensued. The former, the two are said to be the causes. The cessation of the causes with three qualities is indeed the Sugata, the one going to place. So when you're self-grasping, grasping at some true existence in things is reduced and diminished by the understanding of the wisdom which sees that things do not have any true existence, then this, with the increase of this wisdom, the grasping at true existence of things will decrease. So when verse 147 to 48, they are not produced randomly, as causeless productions contradict with occasional production. So His Holiness wants to stop here. Verse number 151, perhaps. When the causes increase, the results cannot diminish. So we are done with the first day of the teaching, the 3-day teaching. So the more you study the teaching of the Buddha, you'll understand the teaching deeper and deeper. So it's not only about faith, but through reason. So, of course, with regard to using logic in our study of Buddhism, the Pramana Vartika Karika is the text that we should base on to study logic and epistemology. But with regard to the philosophical assertion, this text asserts the philosophical positions of Sotantika and Chittamatra, the mind only and the Sotantikas. So, of course, we can use logic and reason to come to conclusions about the truth or the reality of things. Even in quantum physics today, they say that things are merely they do not have any objective existence as such. Verse So, in order to come to the understanding of the ultimate reality and truth of phenomena, we of course need to rely on the Prasangika school of thought, as it is presented by Master Chandrakirti in Madhyamaka Avatara, who says that if things were to have any objective independent existence, then there would be 4 logical fallacies one would have to face, and that you cannot assert. Whereas by following the teaching of the Buddha, as Master Chandrakirti again says in the Madhyamaka Avatara, by developing the light of wisdom within themselves, the bodhisattvas fly across the ocean of samsara and goes to the other side of the ocean of samsara, which is liberation, with the 2 wings. So I also aspire to reach those goals of the goal of reaching the first bodhisattva ground, which is the path of seeing, with the help of the bodhicitta and the wisdom realizing emptiness. So, with these 2 principles of bodhicitta, the altruistic spirit of enlightenment or awakening, and the wisdom of emptiness, one can have some confidence in being able to reach one's goal. So if you practice and if you familiarize yourself with the teaching, what is taught in the teachings, if you apply and integrate them within yourself and make it your own experience, then you will be able to feel, oh, it is possible for me to reach these higher experiences that are taught in the literature, in the books, in scriptures. And so familiarization makes things easier for us. And therefore, having studied the teachings, if one is able to reflect on what you studied, and then make them your own experience through familiarization, then you will, in a way, feel that these becomes your experience, some kind of a solid experience that you can feel within yourself. So verses, chapter 6 of Madhyamaka Avatara, verses 34, 35, 36, 37. And 38, and so they say that these verses go through the 4 logical absurdities one would have to face if one asserts independent objective existence in things. And then, though things do not have any objective independent existence from their own side, yet that doesn't mean that things do not exist. Things exist through dependence on other factors. And so things exist by way of dependence and designation, though they are empty of any independent existence. And so without being obsessed with external things, if you apply these teachings within yourself and reflect on them through reason and logic, you will be able to weaken your perception and conception of the independent existence of things. So once you understand that we are all overpowered and swayed by this, the grasping at, clinging at true existence in things, you will be able to feel compassion for all sentient beings as infinite as the expanse of the space, and have compassion for them because they are swayed by this clinging to true existence in things and beings. So with this, I conclude the teaching today and will continue tomorrow.